Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at A Trick to Catch the Old One by Thomas Middleton. Produced sometime around 1604 to 1606, so early Jacobean, initially by the Children of Paul's and then the Children of the Queen's Revels at Blackfriars. It's all a little complicated what's going on with some of those children's companies at that particular time, but it seems to have done reasonably well. It gets printed twice in Middleton's lifetime. That doesn't often happen. And so, yeah, we're going to find out what this text does. Many of these wonderful people have not encountered this play before, or for that matter, necessarily much Middleton. We haven't, as a group, done much as of yet. We have nipped to the end of his career with a game at chess, and we've done the beginning of his career with the Phoenix, and we've done a few bits and pieces in between. But as of yet, we haven't really dived into his corpus. But we are at the beginning of the Jacobean, very much starting to dive into what he is up to, and we're going to find out a bit more about that with this room now. Quite a big room, so I'm going to crack on. Reading Lamprey today is...
Alan in Suffolk.
Reading Lucre is...
Muted. Hi, I'm Lynn. I'm coming to you from the northwestern United States.
Reading Courtesan is...
Sarah Blake in Germany.
Reading Witgood is...
Even Longstaffe in Dampland.
Reading Kicks and Dampit is...
Rachel in Canada.
Reading Moneylove is...
Lalitte in Paris.
Reading Hoard is...
Alexandra, and I am also here.
Reading Host is...
Hello, I'm Eric. I will be your host organism for this evening.
Reading Sam and George is...
Hello, I'm Greg, and I've scarily realised I've been doing this 3.5 years.
Reading, and joining us for the first time, reading Limber and Wife is...
Harriet, Haylock, and I'm from Wales.
And reading Onesiphorus and Gulf is...
Good afternoon, I'm Connor, and I'm from London.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton, and I'll be reading stage directions and generally moving us forward. I think I've covered pretty much everyone in the room, but do wave if I've accidentally missed someone, because there's a lot of you. You're definitely outnumbering me today. But anyway, we're going to dive on straight away into Act 1, Scene 1. I see no prologue. I'm sure the production would have had something. But we dive straight into the introduction of Witgood, a gentleman solus.
All's gone. Still out a gentleman? That's all. Poor mon, that's nothing. What milk brings thy meadows forth now? Where are thy goodly uplands and thy downlands, all sunk into that little pit? Wretch! What should a gallant pay but 2 shillings for his ordinary that nourishes him, and 20 times 2 for his brothel that consumes him? Oh, here's Longacre. My uncle's conscience, which is 3 years' voyage about. He that sets out upon his conscience never finds the way home again. He's either swallowed in the quicksands of law quillets, or splits upon the piles of a praemunire. Yeah, these old fox-brained and ox-browed uncles have still defences for their avarice, and apologies for their practices, and will thus greet our follies. He that doth his drink expose to brothel, drink, and danger, him that is his nearest kin cheat him before a stranger. And that's his uncle. 'Tis a principle in usury. I dare not visit the city, ere I should be too soon visited by that horrible plague, my debts. And by that means I lose a virgin's love, her portion, and her virtues. How should a man live that has no living? Why, are there not 1,000,000 of men in the world that only sojourn upon their brave, and make their wits their mercers? I am but one amongst that 1,000,000, and cannot thrive upon't. Any trick out of the compass of law thou would come happily to me.
Enter Courtesan.
My love.
My loathing. Hast thou been the secret consumption of my purse? And now comes to unto my last means, and now comes to unto my last means, my wit. Wilt thou no virtue in me, and yet thou never the better? Hence, courtesan, round-webbed tarantula, that driest the roses in the cheeks of youth.
I have been true unto your pleasure, and all your lands thrice racked were never worth the jewel which I prodigally gave you. My virginity. Lands mortgaged may return, and more esteemed, but honesty, once pawned, is ne'er redeemed.
Forgive. I do thee wrong to make thee sin, and then to chide thee for it.
No, I'm your loathing now. Farewell.
Oh, stay, best invention, stay.
I, that have been the secret consumption of your purse, shall I stay now to undo your least means, your wits? Hence, courtesan, away.
I prithee, make me not mad at my own weapon. Stay. I think few women can do, I know that, and therefore they need wear stays. Oh, be not contrary. Just love me. Fate has so cast it that all my means I must derive from thee.
From me? Be happy then. What lies within the power of my performance shall be commanded of thee.
Spoke like an honest drabby face. May prove something. What trick is not an embryon at first, until a perfect shape come over it?
Come, I must help you. Whereabouts left you? I'll proceed. Though you beget, 'tis I must help to breed. Speak. What is't? I'd fain conceive it.
Shoo. Thou shalt presently take the name and form upon me of a rich country widow, 400 a year valiant, in woods, in bullocks, in barns, and in rye stacks. We'll to London and to my covetous uncle.
I begin to applaud thee. Our states being both desperate, they're soon resolute. But how for horses?
Yes, that's true. The jest will be of some continuance. Let me see. Horses now. What's on them? Stay. I have acquaintance with a mad host. Never yet, Hoard, to thee, I have rinsed the horseman's gums in mulstack many a time and often. Put but a good tale into his ear now, so it comes off cleanly, and there's horse and man for us, I dare warrant thee.
Arm your wits then, speedily. There shall want nothing in me, either in behaviour, discourse, or fashion, that shall discredit your intended purpose. I will so artfully disguise my wants, and set so good a courage on my state, that I will be believed.
Why then, all's furnished. I shall go nigh to catch that old fox, mine uncle. Though he make but some amends for my undoing, yet there's some comfort in it. Cannot otherwise choose, though it be but in hope to cozen me again, but supply any hasty want that I bring to town with me. Device, well and cunningly carried, the name of a rich widow, and 400 a year in good earth, will so conjure up a kind of usurer's love in him to me, that he will not only desire my presence, which at first shall scarce be granted him, I'll keep off for the purpose, but I shall find him so officious to deserve, so ready to supply. Oh, I know the state of an old man's affection so well. If his nephew be poor indeed, why, he lets God alone with him. But if he be once rich, then he'll be the first man that helps him.
'Tis right to the world. For in these days, an old man's love to his kindred is like his kindness to his wife. 'Tis always done before he comes at it.
I owe thee for that jest. Begone. Here's all my wealth. Prepare thyself. Away. I'll to mine host with all possible haste, and with the best art and most profitable form, pour the sweet circumstance into his ear, which shall have the gift to turn all wax to honey.
Enter Onesiphorus, Hoard, Limber, and Kicks. Exit Courtesan.
Oh, the right worshipful seniors of our country.
Who's that?
Oh, the common rioter, take no note of him.
You will not see me now. The comfort is that ere very long you will scarce see yourselves.
Exit Witgood.
I wonder how he breathes. Has he consumed a will upon the courtesan?
We have heard so much.
You have heard all truth. His uncle and my brother have been these 3 years mortal adversaries. 2 old tough spirits, they seldom meet but fight, or quarrel when 'tis calmest. I think their anger may be the very fire that keeps their age alive.
What was the quarrel, sir?
Faith, about a purchase. Fetching over a young heir, Master Hoard, my brother, having wasted much time in beating the bargain, what did me old decrease, but as his conscience moved him, knowing the poor gentleman, stepped in between them and cozened him himself.
And was this all, sir?
'Was even, sir. Yet for all this, I know no reason but the match might go for betwixt his wife's son and my niece. What though there be a dissension between the 2 old men, I see no reason it should put a difference between the younger. 'Tis as natural for old folks to fall out as for young to fall in. A scholar comes a wooing to my niece. Well, he's wise, but he's poor. Her son comes a wooing to my niece. Well, he's a fool, but he's rich.
Aye, marry, sir?
Pray, now, is not such a rich fool better than a poor philosopher?
One thinks so, i'faith.
She now remains at London with my brother, her second uncle, to learn fashions, practice music, the voice between her lips, and the world between her legs. She'll be fit for a consort very speedily. 1,000 good pound in her portion, if she marry, she'll ride up and be merry.
A match, if it be a match.
And they exit. End of scene 1. So we're setting up a fair amount of character, a bit of world building, where we've been in this sort of universe before. Many times, but yes, it's a question of the establishing of Witgood and the relationship between him and, well, money, as well as the actual people that are going on in his life, and we've got little things we've encountered before that are from the world that the viewers or listeners today might struggle to land on, but there are plenty of decent analogues that we might be able to go for. But when he's talking about going to his ordinary, going to a fixed priced eating establishment, as opposed to going to a house of ill repute, as it were, there is quite a significant monetary outlay, which is quite different, that's going on there. So thoughts on the room, on these characters, the world that we're in. I have to say the introduction of the latter 2 characters as they came in, I didn't quite get a grip on them as I did with Witgood and Courtesan, but that might just be me. Greg.
That is one hell of a wordy first scene. To me, I felt sometimes first scenes usually are meant to grab you, and I just didn't feel that grabbing from the start this time. The speech Stephen had was great, but I kind of got lost on who everyone was at the end of it. But yeah, it'll be interesting. But this is Middleton, so that doesn't surprise me either.
Yes,
some ways.
we are entering, as we've called it before, the wall of words. You really do need to tune into this stuff, and it's always difficult when people are delivering exposition during it. Lynn.
Yeah, that's a good point. It takes time for an audience to sort of get attuned to the language of the period, and an awful lot of exposition happens in this scene. We've got, you know, a recognizable type, you know, young man who's spent all his money and now he needs money. He's got a rich uncle, a rich miserly uncle. Um, okay, and we're going to try to trick him out of his money. So far, so good. But then these two people whose relationship to Witgood, I don't really know, but like, so they talk in like the third person about, okay, so the uncle has a stepdaughter who's being wooed by two different people. It's like there's another whole marriage plot going on there. It's just a lot. It's a lot of exposition in in a really brief amount of time. So,
well, the thing to remember about Middleton that we've established from the few plays we've read, that sometimes he will establish some things early on, but he won't actually explain them very clearly. But he will explain them clearer later on after important plot things have happened. He sometimes has this sort of late onset exposition problem that he will have explained what's happened, but he would have done it so fleetingly that you're not actually sort of going to catch it. So it's sort of an odd thing that this may be doing a little bit of as well. Alan and then Eric.
Yeah, what puzzled me was the way the words were formed in that first section where you got chunks of what looked like prose, and then it sort of moved into rhyming couplets very briefly, and then back to prose again. I just couldn't quite get my head around that at all.
Yes, he's doing a little ditty, and I don't know whether that's specifically from that's quoting something, and then you do have little bits of verse, and then it's going to be an awful lot of that. It's going to dance between verse and prose a lot, and sometimes deciphering which is going to be tricky. Eric.
Yeah, the second bit, as you said, was kind of like it kind of went over my head. But I feel like it's kind of there are some parts that like already give you characterization. Like you can tell that, well, Onesiphorus kind of wants to. He doesn't really care about his niece. It's just the money. Much like Witgood, I think. Maybe. Yeah, Witgood. Too many characters already. And it's kind of like, I mean, he's talking about how his niece lives in London with his brother to learn fashions and practice music and then become fit for a consort. And it's like, that's not, I mean, yeah, I don't know. So I'm intrigued already, kind of.
Yeah. To a degree, intrigue is all we really need at this stage. As long as we are intrigued, then to a degree the play is successful. Stephen, were you waving?
Yeah, well, just to say, if one way of doing it in performance would be, Courtesan and Witgood are kind of, young and on their toes, and we've got this sort of exciting plot thing, and then it's three old gits, isn't it? The worshipful seniors. So you've got a sort of visual contrast there, and you think, well, there's obviously going to be some kind of conflict between these two forces, as it were. So even though the actual details of the plot, like many other people, I am without Scooby, I would still be thinking, oh, something's set up here, and it's kind of young versus old, or vitality versus usury, or whatever, something like that.
Yes, and in a sense, the shape of this is a very old and familiar one. This is almost harking back to morality traditions, which is something we could talk about later. So in a sense, there may be stuff here that is comforting, at least for the original audience. Whether it's comforting for a modern audience is probably a different question. Eric, and then we will move on.
Of course, I forgot to unmute myself. I was just going to say that it's interesting how, while Stephen's point is valid, that they're all like, it's young versus old, they're still kind of transactional in the same way.
Well, they're all interested in money, and value for money and things. Yes, I suppose. Yes, but they are oppositional, I suppose, in the sense of the one's wanting to protect what they've already got, and another is trying to acquire what they do not have. Or spend what they do not have. Okay, let's gather in more data as we go into Act 1, Scene 2. Enter at one door Witgood, who's barely exited, and at the other door, Host.
Mine host,
Young Master Witgood.
been laying all the town for thee.
Why, what's the news, Bully Hadlin?
What geldings are in the house of thine own? Answer me to that first.
Why, man? Why?
Mark me what I say. I'll tell thee such a tale in thine ear, that thou shalt trust me, spite of my teeth. Furnish me with some money willy-nilly, and ride up with me thyself contra voluntatem et professionem.
Oh, let me see this trick, and I'll say thou hast more than a conjurer, more art than a conjurer.
Dost thou joy in my advancement?
Do I love sack and ginger?
Comes my prosperity desiredly to thee?
Come forfeitures to a usurer, fees to an officer, punks to a host, and pigs to a parson desiredly? Why then, la!
Wilt the report of a widow of 400 a year make thee leap and sing and dance, and come to thy place again?
Wilt thou command me now? I am thy spirit. Conjure me into any shape.
I have brought her from her friends, turned back the horses by a sleight, not so much as one among her 6 men, goodly large yeomanly fellows, will she trust with this her purpose. By this light, all unmanned, regardless of her state, neglectful of vainglorious ceremony, all for my love. Oh, 'tis a fine voluble little tongue, mine host, that wins a widow.
No, 'tis a tongue with a great T, my boy, that wins a widow.
Now, sir, the case stands thus. Good mine host, if thou lovest my happiness, assist me.
Command all my beasts to the house.
Nay, that's not all neither. Prithee, take truce with thy joy, and listen to me. Thou knowest I have a wealthy uncle in the city, somewhat the wealthier by my follies. The report of this fortune, well and cunningly carried, might be a means to draw some goodness from the usuring rascal. For I have put her in hope already of some estate that I have either in land or money. Now, if I be found true in neither, what may I expect but a sudden breach of our love, utter dissolution of the match, and confusion of my fortune forever?
Wilt thou but trust the managing of thy business with me?
With thee? Why, will I desire to thrive in my purpose? Will I hug 400 a year? I that know the misery of nothing? Will that man wish a rich widow that has never a hole to put his head in? With thee, mine host? I believe it, sooner with thee than with a covey of counsellors.
Thank you for your good report, faith, sir, and if I stand you not instead, why then let an host come off the hick-at-hack hostess, a deadly enemy to dice, drink, and veterinary. Come, where's this widow?
Out at Park End.
I'll be your serving man for once.
Why, there we let off together. Keep full time. My thoughts were striking then just the same number.
I knew it. Shall we then see our merry days again?
Ah, merry nights, which never shall be more seen.
And they exit. We won't linger too heavily here, but remember that exposition I was talking about earlier? Look, here it comes. Look, everyone's sort of, hi, let me explain there's a plot going on. It's not fully formed, but there's sort of a bit more going on there. Any thoughts briefly on this little scene as once again Witgood comes on and sort of talks about there's a plot thing going on. Would you like to assist while we tell some things that look like rude jokes, but we're not quite sure how they function? I know it sounds rude. I don't know why it's rude. But, you know, Lynn.
Yeah, it's the host is not in on the plot, though, not fully. Oh, there's this widow and I want to marry her. But you know I'm poor, so we have to make it look like my uncle's estate is my estate. So, like, yeah, Witgood has got a lot of plates spinning already. Only the courtesan looks like who is in on the whole thing. They want to enlist the host's help, but they're not telling him the truth. So.
But I mean, the host does know that he's he's very short of money. I mean, his opening address of "had land" is a bit pointed. Alexandra.
I just wanted to say that I really like the fact that we start scene 1 with "here is the plot," and then we move to scene 2 with the same plotter who plotted a plot earlier, plotting a different plot that relates to it in scene 2. I think as an audience, we would be very drawn to that, and we'd have a lot of fun with that. Of hang on a second, whom is he actually trying to screw over? And it's. Yeah, I was about to say it's something I've seen Middleton do before. It's not him, actually. I was thinking of Johnson. But it's definitely something that's was popular back then that would still be popular right now. That idea of somebody being so clever that they're simultaneously outwitting different people while persuading them they're outwitting each other.
Yes, and the thing is also to remember that we haven't utilised much stage time yet. We've done more talking than we've done actually that much reading. This stuff is flashing by relatively quickly, and would flow into itself. I said Witgood enters. He's only literally just exited. 2 or 3 minutes previously. So he's spinning plates. He started spinning plates very quickly. It's an interesting question as to, in a modern production, whether, I said there was no prologue. We could always add one. And it might, just to throw an audience a crumb if we feel they need it. And that's we've had this conversation before. I'll hold on to any additional thoughts for the moment. We're going to read a little bit more, get a bit more data before we stop for any length of time. Act 1, Scene 3. Enter at several doors, old Lucre and old Hoard. Gentlemen, variously, there's Lamprey, there's Spitchcock, there's Sam Freedom and Moneylove, coming between them to pacify them. So there's a fight going on.
Nay, good Master Lucre, and you, Master Hoard. Anger is the wind, with which you're both too much troubled withal.
Shall my adversary thus daily affront me, ripping up the old wound of our malice, which 3 summers could not close up, into which wound the very sight of him drops scalding lead instead of balsamum?
Why, Hoard, 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 may I not pass in a state of quietness to mine own house? Answer me to that before witnesses, and why? I'll refer the cause to honest, even-minded gentlemen and require the mere indifference of the law to decide the matter. I got the purchase, true, was not any man's case. Yes, will a wise man stand abawed whilst another wipes his nose of the bargain? No, I answer no in that case.
Nay, sweet Master Lucre.
Was it the part of a friend? No, rather of a Jew, mark what I say, when I had beaten the bush to the last bird, or as I might term it, the price to a pound, then like a cunning usurer to come in the evening of the bargain and glean all my hopes in a minute, to enter, as it were, at the back door of the purchase, for thou never camest the right way by it.
Hast thou the conscience to tell me so without any impeachment to thyself?
Thou that canst defeat thy own nephew, Lucre, lap his lands into bonds, and take the extremity of thy kindred's forfeitures because he's a rioter, a waste-thrift, a brothel master, and so forth, what may a stranger expect from thee? But vulnerabilitata, as the poet says, dilacerate dealing.
Waitest thou me with nephew? Is all imputation laid upon me? What acquaintance have I with his follies? If he riot, 'tis he must want it. If he surfeit, 'tis he must feel it. If he drab it, 'tis he must lie by it. What's this to me?
What's all to thee? Nothing, nothing, such is the gulf of thy desire and the wolf of thy conscience. But be assured, old pecunious Lucre, if ever fortune so bless me that I may be at leisure to vex thee, or any means so favour me that I may have opportunity to mad thee, I will pursue it with that flame of hate, that spirit of malice, unrepressed wrath, that I will blast thy comforts.
Nay, Master Hoard, you're a wise gentleman.
I will so cross thee,
And I thee.
so without mercy wreck thee,
So monstrously oppose thee.
scoff at my just anger. Oh, that I had as much power as usury has over thee.
Then thou wouldst have as much power as the devil has over thee.
Toad,
Aspic,
serpent,
viper.
Have I put down a spitchcock? I haven't, have I? Nay, gentlemen, then we must divide you perforce.
When the fire grows too unreasonable hot, there's no better way than to take off the wood.
And exeunt everyone except for Sam and Moneylove.
A word, good signor.
How now? What's the news?
It is given me to understand that you are a rival of mine and the love of Mistress Joyce, Master Hoard's niece. Say me aye, say me no.
Yes, 'tis so.
Then look to yourself. You cannot live long. I'm practicing every morning. A month hence, I'll challenge you.
Give me your hand upon it. There's my pledge. I'll meet you.
And strikes him and exits.
What reason had you for that, sir? To strike before the months? You know I am... Sorry, you knew I was not ready for you, and that made you so crank. I am not such a coward to strike again, I warrant you. My ear has the Lord of her side, for it burns horribly. I will teach him to strike a naked face, the longest day of his life. Slid, it shall cost me some money, but I'll bring this box into chancery.
And they exit. And so big argument going on. Again, lots of stuff. It's like just stuff constantly being thrown at us. And it's a sense of getting a sense of this world. But I'm still not really grasping it yet. Again, it's that sort of we're getting occasional bits of exposition that leap out, and I've grabbed that, and then I lose the thread again. It is, and I don't think this is not deliberate. I think this is what Middleton is doing here, but it is very, very bamboozling. Anyone want to go with what just happened there? Craig, you don't have to answer that question.
I just kind of came into it, well, who the hell is Sam? And I must admit, you expect in a scene to at least get some expectation of who the person is introduced, and you just go, well, if you look at the cast, he's the son of the first wife of somebody or other. So, he's obviously somebody in the play. He's not just in character, and, you've met his dad or his stepdad or whatever it is. I just went, yeah. And I love his character, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, but we have just heard of them. One's that isn't sad. One's the stupid rich one, and the other one's the clever poor one. So
yeah, and which is which?
Moneylove's the clever poor one.
Okay,
and,
that's his name threw me off because
he's meant to be a scholar.
He's a scholar, and his name is Moneylove. Like that sort of classic setup. The girl is being pursued by someone who's rich, but otherwise undesirable, and then someone who's poor but otherwise admirable. But yeah, the fact that Middleton named him Moneylove completely threw me off. I thought that they.
I'm just wondering if there aren't any goodies and baddies in this, though. Everyone's after money via love rather than anything kind of nobler. They all seem to have exactly the same motivations.
Yes, I think there is something transactional with pretty much everybody that we've met so far. I don't think anyone's come on and gone, oh, look at me, I am terribly noble being noble. Nobody's doing any of that. They're all fighting for their corner, and that seems to be what these characters are doing. And even if we don't precisely know their relationship, there's obviously things that a production would give us that we're not getting here. We're not getting status from clothing, for example. The visual hanging on, because this scene effectively opens with a fight and two groups of people going, no, don't, no, he's not worth it, he's not worth it. So we're not quite getting that dynamic as to who's precisely on whose side in that visual sense that we would be getting in a production. Alexandra, I think you're waving.
I just wanted to say I'm getting a sense that what this opening sequence is doing is establishing what the conflicts are rather than who the characters are. So it's like, it's the guy in red against the guy in green, and it's the guy in yellow against the guy in purple. Don't try and remember what it's about. Just remember who's against whom. And I put in the chat that it's this opening so far feels very like the start of a heist movie or something complex of that nature. And the more we go through it, the more it feels like a series of montages. A montage of a series of vignettes of kind of one little thing about these guys and then one little thing about these guys. And don't worry, you don't have to understand now. They'll all come back later. But here is the lay of the land, and then we'll get into you, the audience, understanding what the hell is going on. It feels done on purpose. Yeah,
I mean, it feels like if it was a film, you would have a scene with one person, and the screen would sidle off, and they'd still be there, but then you'd have the other people, and then the screen breaks off into little windows, a bit like what we're looking at now, and you'd see that sort of the conflict, and then you move off to a different bit. Lynn, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I think the rivalries are really important, but you get a little character too. I mean, the old men are named Lucre and Hoard, and they are lifelong enemies now because of a business deal. And it's not as if either one of them wants for money. You get the feeling that it's so their conflict is all about money. So they're old, they're grumpy, they're miserly, they're petty. So you get that about them. And even the little exchange between Sam and Moneylove, the names notwithstanding, Sam says, "Now, in a month, I'm going to challenge you, because then I'll be ready." And Moneylove's like, "Well, here's a box on the ear as based sort of earnest for that transaction." So you do get a little like the Moneylove's a real man, and Sam was kind of an idiot.
Yeah, and just on that name point, we're not short of repetitions of some characters' names, so there is a certain hierarchy that's coming in here that they are latching onto it. Okay, we've got one more scene before we complete Act 1. I'll go to Eric before we do that, and then we'll move complete the scene.
I was just gonna say that it feels a bit like sort of something epic, like sort of Game of Thrones type thing, where like they all have the same goal that they're moving towards, but you don't see it from the beginning of the play or film, series. 10 seasons later, anyway. But it feels like that kind of thing where you don't really know how they relate to each other. You just know that there's this one goal that is there.
Right, well, we're about to finish Act 1. So far, we've had an awful lot of sexual innuendo, but nobody's burst out into song yet, so they've only got one scene left to do that before the end of the act. So, Act 1, Scene 4, enter Witgood and host.
Fear you nothing, sir. I've lodged her in a house of credit, I warrant you.
Hast thou the writings?
Firm, sir.
And enter Dampit and Gulf, who are talking apart.
Thee stay, and behold the two most prodigious rascals that ever slipped into the shape of men, Dampit, sirrah, and young Gulf, his fellow caterpillar.
Dampit, sure I've heard that, Dampit.
Heard of him? Why, man, he that has lost both his ears may hear of him. A famous, infamous trampler of time, his own phrase. Note him well, that Dampit, sirrah, He in the uneven beard and the serge cloak is the most notorious usuring, blasphemous, atheistical, brothel-vomiting rascal that we have in these latter times now extant, whose first beginning was the steering of a masty dog from a farmer's house.
Well, that narrows it down. He looked as if he would obey the commandments well when he began first the stealing.
No, true. Next town he came at, he set the dogs together by the ears.
A sign he should follow the law, by my faith.
So it followed indeed, and being destitute of all fortunes, staked his masty against a noble, and by great fortune his dog had the day. How he made it up 10 shillings, I know not, but his own boast is that he came to town but with 10 shillings in his purse, and now is credibly worth £10,000.
How the devil came he by it?
How the devil came he not by it? If you put in the devil once, riches comes with a vengeance. Has been a trampler of the law, sir, and the devil has a care of his footmen. The rogue has spied me now. He nibbled me finally once too. Pox search you. Ah, Master Dampit, there are they loins of thee. Cry you mercy, Master Golf. You walk so low, I promise I saw you not, sir.
He that walks low walks safe, the poets tell us.
Nigher hell by a foot and a half than the rest of his fellows. But my old Harry.
My sweet Theodorus.
'Twas a merry world when thou camest to town with 10 shillings in thy purse.
And now worth £10,000, my boy. Report it. Harry Dampit, a trampler of time, say. He would be up in the morning and be here with his serge gown dashed up to the hams in the cause, have his feet stink about Westminster Hall, and come home again. See the galleons, the galleasses, the great armadas of the law, then there by the hoys and the pretty vessels, oars and scullers of the time. There be the picklocks of the time too. Then would I be there. I would trample up and down like a mule. Now to the judges. May it please your reverend honorable fatherhoods. Then to my counselor. May it please your worshipful patience. Then to the examiner's office. May it please your mastership's gentleness. Then to one of the clerks. May it please your worshipful lousiness, for I find him scrubbing in his codpiece. Then to the hall again. Then to the chamber again.
And went to the cellar again?
Even when thou wilt again, tramplers of time, motions of Fleet Street, and visions of Holborn. Here I have fees of one, there I have fees of another. My clients come about me. The fulliamony, the coxcombry of the country. I still trashed and trotted for other men's causes. Thus was poor Harry Dampit made rich by others' laziness, who, though they would not follow their own suits, I made them follow me with their purses.
'Tis thou so, old Harry.
Aye, and I sauced him with bills of charges of faith. £20 a year I have brought in for a boat hire, and I never stepped into a boat in my life.
Tramplers of time.
Aye, tramplers of time, rascals of time, bull beggars.
Thou art a mad old Harry. Kind Master Golf, I am bold to renew my acquaintance.
I embrace it, sir.
And music plays, and they exit. So we definitely get music for the interval when they trim the candles. There is intimations of that, but no songs detectable in this place so far, which is almost surprising. We got potentially 4 lines of the mini ditty earlier from Witgood, but that's about it. Lots of things here. £20 a year I bought in for boat hire, and I never stepped into a boat in my life. Now, that's happened recently, in recent times, in a government department. Let's hand out a government contract to for ferries to someone who don't actually own any ferries. That is actually something that has actually happened. Hey, it's only the odd billion quid down the drain. Anyway. Go political. Ignore me. So yeah, there's an awful lot here. I mentioned in the chat, it's a bit like a humans play in the sense that what you often get there is someone will do a character assassination of another person, and then the person is there, and you actually meet them in person and find out how like them they are, and lo, they do seem to be quite like them. So there's that little bit there. Thoughts on the room about this encounter and these people and what's going on? Does anyone know what's going on yet? Put your hand up if you think you know what's going on. No, there's stuff happening. There's a lot of stuff happening. But the detail of precisely what's happening yet, we've just met a lot of people. And it's been quite engaging. I'm sort of interested in them. But I am genuinely going, I really need a roadmap soon. Otherwise, you're going to lose me. But hey, it's only Act 1. Lynn.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I had a tentative hold on it when we have the plot to get Lucre's money from him. Okay, that's Witgood's plot to get money from his uncle, and then the love rivalry over Lucre's stepdaughter. Okay, and the conflict between Lucre and Hoard. Okay, I kind of got my head around that, and then we have Dampit, the rich dishonest lawyer. Like, what's he doing here? It's too much. What's your expression? Like, over egging the pudding. It's just maybe over the top.
Just on a sort of language note, I mean, because we were talking about the wall of words earlier. Is there anything here that's not coming across? Because it's not like I'm sort of noticing on a vast amount of obscurity in the actual language that they're using, but it's just the amount of it and the sort of density of it, which is making it quite tricky to take in. We've covered maybe 25, 30 minutes of text so far, so we have covered a reasonable chunkette potentially here. Eric.
I was just wondering where this was performed, if we know, because as you said, like the candles and stuff. But it kind of it just intrigues me because it can change sort of context of it quite a bit.
It's definitely an indoor playhouse. It seems to shift because if it's initially Children of Paul's, then it will be wherever they're playing at around 1604-ish, and then it's at the Blackfriars with the Queen's Revels. So it's a relatively small indoor playhouse, but it's not excessively small. I think some of the earlier spaces were a bit cramped, but these ones are reasonably capacious as far as indoor playhouses get. So indoor candles, young people. Though the definition of young varies enormously over time. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying it's going to be a relatively small house, but it does seem to have an inordinately large cast.
Yes, boys companies will do that. What they will often do is they'll have a large cast, but they're not on stage all at the same time. That they'll compartmentalize the action a lot. I mean, it's like I didn't even give a part out because I didn't even notice that they had lines, because they had a line. Hitchcock turned up and said something. I didn't even notice when I was doing the team sheet. So it was, But the bulk of it's being carried by Witgood and a couple of others. I mean, that's actually, we've got a large room, but actually we're not very well distributed in terms of readers because there are about 4 or 5 really bulky parts sucking up all the dialogue. Other thoughts before we move into Act 2? Musicians finishing their last number. The candles have been trimmed if necessary. Might not have been. It's only been up, 20 minutes, half an hour. And we go into Act 2, and Act 2, Scene 1 is quite a long one, so I may pause midway. Act 2, Scene 1. Enter Lucre.
My adversary evermore twits me with my nephew. Forsooth, my nephew. Why, may not a virtuous uncle have a dissolute nephew? What though he be a brotheler, a waste-thrift, a common servitor, and to conclude, a beggar? Must sin in him call up shame in me? Since we have no part in their follies, why should we have any part in their infamies? My strict hand towards his mortgage, that I deny not. I confess I had an uncle's pennyworth, let me see, half in half, true. I saw neither hope of his reclaiming nor comfort in his being. And was it not then better bestowed upon his uncle than upon one of his aunts? I need not say bawd, for everyone knows that what aunt stands for in the last translation.
And enter George.
And now, sir.
There's a country serving man, sir, attends to speak with your worship.
I'm at best leisure now. Send him in to me.
And exit the servant George. Enter host like a serving man.
Bless your venerable worship.
Welcome, good fellow.
He calls me thief at first sight, yet he little thinks I'm a host.
What's thy business with me?
Faith, sir, I'm sent from my mistress to any sufficient gentleman indeed to ask advice upon a doubtful point. 'Tis indifferent, sir, to whom I come, for I know none, nor did my mistress direct me to any particular man, for she's as mere a stranger here as myself. I only found your worship within, and 'tis the thing I ever loved, sir, to be dispatched as soon as I can.
A good, blunt honesty. I like him well. What is thy mistress?
Faith, a country gentlewoman and a widow, sir. Yesterday was the first flight of us, but now she intends to stay till a little term business be ended.
Her name, I prithee.
It runs there in the writing, sir, among her lands. Widow Medlar.
Medlar? Mass, have I ever heard of that widow?
Yes, I warned you. Have you not? Have you, sir? I warned. Yes, I warned you. Have you, sir? Not the rich widow in Staffordshire?
God's me, there 'tis indeed. Thou hast put me into memory. There's a widow indeed. That I were a bachelor again.
No doubt your worship might do much then, but she's fairly promised to a bachelor already.
And what is he, I prithee?
A country gentleman too, one whom your worship knows not, I'm sure, has spent some few follies in his youth, but marriage by my faith begins to call him home. My mistress loves him, sir, and love covers faults, you know. One Master Witgood, if ever you have heard of the gentleman.
Yeah, Witgood, sayest thou?
That's his name indeed, sir. My mistress is like to bring him to a goodly seat yonder, 400 a year by my faith.
But pray, take me with you.
Aye, sir.
What countryman might this young Witgood be?
A Leicestershire gentleman, sir.
My nephew, by the mass, my nephew. I'll fetch out more of this. Faith, a simple country fellow, I'll work out of him. And this gentleman, sayest thou, presently to marry her?
Faith, he brought her up to town, sir. He has the best card and all the bunch for it, her heart. And I know my mistress will be married ere she go down. Nay, I'll swear that, for she's none of those widows that will go down first and be married after. She hates that, I can tell you, sir.
By my faith, sir, she is like to have a proper gentleman and a comely. I'll give her that gift.
What, does your worship know him, sir?
Know him? Just all the world know him. Can a man of such exquisite qualities be hid under a bushel?
Then your worship may save me a labour, for I had charge given me to inquire after him.
Inquire of him? If I might counsel thee, thou shouldst never trouble any further. Inquire of him, no more but of me. I'll fit thee. I grant he has been youthful, but is he not now reclaimed? Mark you that, sir. Has not your mistress, think you, been wanton in her youth? If men be wags, are there not women wagtails?
No doubt, sir.
Does not he return wisest, that comes home whipped with his own follies?
Why, very true, sir.
The worst report you can hear of him, I can tell you, is that he has been a kind gentleman, a liberal, and a worthy, who but lusty with Witgood, thrice noble Witgood.
Since your worship has so much knowledge in him, can you resolve me, sir, what his living might be? My duty binds me, sir, to have a care of my mistress' estate. She's ever been a good mistress to me, though I say it. Many wealthy suitors has she none suited for his sake. Yet, though her love be fixed, a man cannot tell whether his non-performance may help to remove it, sir. He makes us believe he has lands and living.
Oh, young Master Witgood. Why, I believe it, he has a goodly fine living. Out yonder, what do you call the place?
Nay, I know not the faith.
See, like a beast if I have not forgot the name. And out yonder again, goodly grown woods and fair meadows. Pax on it, I never hit of that place neither. He's Witgood of Witgood Hall. He's an unknown thing.
Is he so, sir? To see how rumour will alter. Trust me, sir, we heard he once had no lands, but all lay mortgaged to an uncle he has in town here.
Hush, 'tis a tale. A tale.
I can assure you, sir, it was credibly reported to my mistress.
Why, do you think in faith he was ever so simple to mortgage his lands to his uncle? Or his uncle so unnatural to take the extremity of such a mortgage?
That was my saying still, sir.
Never think it.
Yet that report goes current.
Nay, then you urge me. Cannot I tell the best that am his uncle?
How, sir? What have I done?
Why, how now? In a swoon, man.
Is your worship his uncle, sir?
Can that be any harm to you, sir?
I do beseech you, sir, do me the favor to conceal it. What a beast I was to utter so much. Pray, sir, do me the kindness to keep it in. I shall have my coat pulled over my ears, and it should be known, for the truth is, and it please your worship, to prevent much rumor and many suitors, they intend to be married very quickly and very privately.
And dost thou think it stands with my judgment to do them injury? Must I needs say the knowledge of this marriage comes from thee? Am I a fool at 54? Do I lack subtlety now that have got all my wealth by it? There's a leash of angels for thee. Come, let me woo thee. Speak. Where lie they?
So I might have no anger, sir.
Passion of me, not a jot. Prithee, come.
I would not have known it came by my means.
Why, am I a man of wisdom?
I dare trust your worship, sir, but I'm a stranger to your house, and to avoid all intelligencers, I desire your worship's ear.
This fellow's worth a matter of trust. Come, sir.
And the host whispers it in his ear.
Why now? Thou art an honest lad. Sirrah nephew.
Please you, sir, now I have begun with your worship. When shall I attend for your advice upon that doubtful point? I must come warily now.
Tut, fear thou nothing. Tomorrow's evening shall resolve the doubt.
The time shall cause my attendance.
Fare thee well.
Exit host.
There's more true honesty in such a country's serving man than in 100 of our cloak companions. I may well call them companions, for since blue coats have been turned into cloaks, we can scarce know the man from the master. George.
Enter George.
Anon, sir.
List hither. Keep the secret place. Commend me to my nephew. I know no cause tell him, but he might see his uncle.
I will, sir.
And, do you hear, sir? Take heed to use him with respect and duty.
It's a strange alteration. One day he must be turned out like a beggar, and now he must be called in like a knight.
Exit George.
Sirrah, that rich widow, 400 a year. Beside, I hear she lays claim to a title of 100 more. This falls unhappily that he should bear a grudge to me now, being so likely to prove so rich. What's it, trow, that he makes me a stranger for him? I hope he has not so much wit to apprehend that I cozened him. He deceives me then. Good heaven, who would have thought it would ever come to this pass? He's a proper gentleman, in faith, give him his due. Marry, that's his mortgage. But that I never mean to give him. I'll make him rich enough in words, if that be good. And if he come to a piece of money, I will not greatly stick for it. There may be hope of some of the widow's lands, too. May one fall upon me, if things be carried wisely.
Enter George.
Now, sir, where is he?
He desires your worship to hold him excused. He has such weighty business, it commands him wholly from all men.
Were those my nephew's words?
Yes, indeed, sir.
When men grow rich, they grow proud, too. I perceive that. He would not have sent me such an answer once within this 12-month. See what 'tis when a man comes to his lands. Return to him again. Sir, tell him his uncle desires his company for an hour. I'll trouble him but an hour. Say, 'tis for his own good. Tell him. And do you hear, sir? Put worship upon Go to, do as I bid you. He's like to be a gentleman of worship very shortly.
This is good sport and faith.
Exit George.
Troth, he uses his uncle discourteously now. Can he tell what I may do for him? Goodness may come from me in a minute. That comes not in 7 year again. He knows my humor. I am not so usually good. 'Tis no small thing that draws kindness from me. He may know that, and he will. The chief cause that he invites me to do him most good is the sudden astonishing of old Hoard, my adversary. How pale his mouse will look at my nephew's advancement. With what a dejected spirit he will behold his fortunes, whom but last day he proclaimed a rioter, penurious makeshift, despised brothel master. 'Twill do me more secret joy than my last purchase, more precious comfort than all of these widows' revenues.
Enter George.
Now, sir.
With much entreaty, he's at length come, sir.
And exit George, enter Witgood. But we'll pause there to take in a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff. I mean, there was plot things. They were setting up the arrival of Witgood. The Witgood has now arrived, but there seemed to be an awful lot to get there. An awful lot of verbiage under the bridge. How are people feeling about the opening of Act 2? I suppose there's been an interval, so maybe you need to settle back into the groove. But it's not an excessively long one, necessarily. Thoughts on this? I continue to see frowns and confusion, but that's how it goes. Alan, then Eric.
Yeah, there's a whole tsunami of words there, and I'm not sure it's doing that much to help unless there's physical business going on at the same time that might provide some justification for some of it.
Eric.
Yeah, I just like the whole sort of pretense of the host, pretending not to know who this is. Obviously, it's set up, but I just like the whole thing of Master Witgood, and then like, oh, which Witgood is this? Is this? Oh, yes, the man of Leicestershire. And sort of like, are there that many Witgoods in Leicestershire or outside of Leicestershire? It just kind of, I like the idea of there being like a whole family of Witgoods somewhere.
Yes, the Lancashire Witgoods. Yes,
We don't speak to them.
Stephen.
Yeah, the details. I'm not going to bother my pretty little head with the details, but they're what it's giving us is just, isn't it just a world where everybody is trying to manipulate everybody else, and the host kind of just slips into role straight away. This kind of con stuff that's like, Witgood's 12 or something. Everybody is potentially got their own agenda, and we've got this sort of dizzying potential for the plot. It's not just, I don't know, something like Volpone, where you've got a clever trickster and some obvious goals. It's trying to establish different agencies, isn't it? And that's quite... It's kind of frustrating because we haven't really got stuck into it yet, but it reminds me of that old variety act there used to be, where there's sort of sticks and plates spinning. That, we start off with a couple of plates, and this seems to just add a few more plates. So potentially things can happen. They might not, but it's going to be, Witgood has got to keep his wits about him, because everybody else's wits are kind of subtler than they seem at first sight, perhaps.
And people are being driven by their worst of motivations as well. I mean, it's just like Lucre's just going, I will entertain this person here. I don't like him or trust him, but I'm going to do it because it's going to really tee off old Hoard, who I really don't like. And it's people are doing things because they don't like other people and they want to do them harm. And it's not always actually about improving their own lives. Sometimes it's just about doing somebody else down. And so everybody's they're not all the same agendas, but they've all got one, as it were. Lynn.
Yeah, that was actually my response precisely is that one thing we learn in this scene is that Lucre's kind of a horrible person. I mean, he's not just greedy, he's malicious. My nephew who owes me money is going to marry a rich widow. That could potentially work out well for me, because then the nephew will have money again, he'll pay me back, or I'll get to attach the widow's lands for the money that he owes me. So financially, this could benefit me. But the best part is it's going to make my enemy squirm. Like, we didn't need to have that line. But the effect is that we expose what a petty and malicious person Lucre is.
Well, let's find out more about that pettiness and maliciousness, and also see how good Witgood's tap dancing skills are, as we have the entrance of... he's been set up for his entrance. Enter Witgood.
Oh, nephew, let me salute you, sir. You are welcome, nephew.
Uncle, I thank you.
You have a fault, nephew. You're a stranger here. Well, heaven give you joy.
Of what, sir?
We can hear you might have known your uncle's house in faith, you and your widow. Go to, you are to blame, if I may tell you so without offence.
Could you hear of that, sir?
Oh, pardon me. It was your will to have it kept from me, I perceive now.
Not for any defect of love, I protest, uncle.
Oh, 'twas an unkindness, nephew. Fie.
Sorry that you take it in that sense, sir.
You cannot colour it in faith, nephew.
Will you but hear what I can say in my just excuse, sir?
Yes, faith will I, and welcome.
You know that you that know my danger in the city, sir, so well, how great my debts are, and how extreme my creditors, could not out of your pure judgment, sir, have wished us hither.
Master, a firm reason indeed.
Else my uncle's house, why, 'tad been the only make match.
Nay, and thy credit.
My credit? Nay, my countenance. Push. Nay, I know, uncle, you would have wrought it so by your wit. You would have made a believe in time the whole house had been mine.
Aye, and most of the goods too.
Like you there. Well, let them all prate what they will. There's nothing like the bringing of a widow to one's uncle's house.
Nay, let nephews be ruled as they list. They shall find their uncle's house the most natural place when all's done.
There they may be bold.
Life they may do anything there, man, and fear neither beetle nor summoner. An uncle's house, a very cool harbour. Sirrah, I'll touch thee near now. Thou hast so much interest in thy widow, that by token thou couldst presently send for her.
Troth, I think I can, uncle.
Go to, let me see that.
Pray command one of your men hither, uncle.
George.
Enter George.
Yes, sir.
Attend my nephew.
And Witgood whispers to George, who then goes out.
I love a life to prattle with a rich widow. 'Tis pretty, methinks, when our tongues go together, and then to promise much and perform little. I love that sport of life in faith, yet I am in a mood now to do my nephew some good, if he take it handsomely. What have you dispatched?
Yeah, I have sent, sir.
Yet I must condemn you of unkindness, nephew.
Oh, heaven forbid, uncle.
Yes, in faith I must. I say your debts be many, and your creditors importunate. Yet the unkindness of a thing is all, nephew. You might have sent me close word on it, without the least danger of prejudice to your fortunes.
I confess it, uncle. I was to blame there. But indeed my intent was to have clapped it up suddenly, and so broke forth like a joy to my friends and a wonder to the world. Besides, there is some trifle of a £40 matter towards the setting of me forth. My friends should never have known of it. I meant to make that shift for that myself.
How, nephew, let me not hear such a word again, I beseech you. Shall I be beholding to you?
To me? Alas, what do you mean, uncle?
I charge you upon my love, you trouble nobody but myself.
Oh, I have no reason for that, uncle.
I'll never be friends with you while I live, and you do.
Nay, and you say so, uncle. Here's my hand. I will not do it.
Well, why, well said. There's some hope in thee when thou wilt be ruled. I'll make it up fitly, faith, because I see thee so reclaimed. Peace, here comes my wife with Sam, her brother's husband's son.
And enter
Her t'other husband's son.
Enter wife and Sam.
Good aunt.
Cousin Witgood, I rejoice in my salute. You're most welcome to this noble city, governed with a sword in the scabbard.
The wit in the pommel. Good Master Sam Freedom, I return the salute.
By the mass, she's coming, wife. Let me see how thou wilt entertain her.
I hope I am not to learn, sir, to entertain a widow. 'Tis not so long ago since I was one myself.
Enter Courtesan.
Uncle.
She's come indeed.
My uncle was desirous to see you, widow, and I presumed to invite you.
The presumption was nothing, Master Witgood. Is this your uncle, sir?
Marry am I, sweet widow, and his good uncle, he shall find me. I, by this smack that I give thee, thou'rt welcome. Wife, bid the widow welcome the same way again.
I am a gentleman now, too, by my father's occupation. And I say no reason, but I may kiss a widow by my father's copy. Truly, I think the character is not against it. Surely these are the words. The son wants a gentleman may revel it, though his father would a dash dauber. 'Tis about the 15th page. I'll to her.
Attempts to kiss the courtesan himself, but she rejects him.
You're not very busy now. A word with thee, sweet widow.
Oh, snakes! I was never so disgraced since the hour my mother whipped me.
Beside, I have no child of mine own to care for. She's my second wife. Old, past bearing. Clap sure to him, widow. He's like to be my heir, I can tell you.
Is he so, sir?
He knows it already, and the knave's proud on it. Jolly rich widows have been offered him here in the city, great merchants' wives, and do you think he could once look upon them? Forsooth he'll none. You are beholding to him in the country, then, ere we could be. Nay, I'll hold a wager, widow, if he were once known to be in town, he would be presently sought after. Nay, and happy were they that could catch him first.
I think so.
There would be such running to and fro, widow. He should not pass in the streets for him. He'd be took up in one great house or another presently. Fa, they know he has it and must have it. You see this house here, widow, this house, and all comes to him. Goodly rooms, ready furnished, sealed with plaster of Paris, and all hung with cloth of Arras. Nephew,
Sir?
show the widow your house. Carry her into all the rooms and bid her welcome. You shall see a widow. Nephew, strike all sure above, and thou beest a good boy. Huh?
Alas, sir, I know not how she would take it.
The right way, I warrant thee. A pox art an ass. Would I were in thy stead. Get you up. I am ashamed of you.
And exeunt Witgood and Courtesan, and we're going to pause there. It's a big old scene. We're starting to get to some meat here. We're getting to some stuff that you can sort of play with as you actually have active sort of pretenses going on. Witgood coming on and going, oh, well, you know, there was this minor debt I was thinking of, but it's okay. I was going to cover that myself. No, let me cover it. Oh, well, if you insist. And those little backs and forths, and then we've got the Courtesan turning up in disguise as this rich widow, and of course the various plays now start to sort of move, and we've got George in the middle of it. I quite like George in the middle of it. I quite like this idea that, you know, oh, everybody's kissing Are they? Oh, well, I'll have a go, and they sort of just move him out of the way or whatever. I'm curious about George, and how he functions in Lucre's household, and is he house trained? I do wonder. He's a strange chap. Thought that definitely a sense of a scene that's functioning in a way that's a lot clearer at first read than some of the earlier material. There definitely felt like a scene I understand in a much clearer way. I'm seeing nodding. I've no idea if anyone agrees with me, because nobody seems to want to say anything. It's fine. They're just leaving it to me. It's fine. I'll just keep talking. I'm sure someone has an opinion. Lynn.
Just like this, it's really just a small moment, but in case we didn't know that Sam is really useless, even the courtesan who's pretending to be a widow, it's like, I'm not kissing you, ew. How unattractive must he be that she's like, no.
Stephen.
Some of the pleasure of this, just watching people playing games. It's just this kind of thing that now we've got this quite elaborate thing going on, and it's just people playing, isn't it? It's taken ages to set up, but that's where the energy of it's coming from, perhaps. Now, once we've got all of those plates are spinning.
Yeah, yes, that they're playing games with each other, and the other people also sort of know that they're playing games with. I'm sure Lucre kind of knows that he's being, that little debt. Maybe at this part of him going, oh, we're playing this game. Well, I'll play along because I'm playing a long game. This is a long con, not a short con. Oh no, it is a long con. Oh no, the different kind of cons that you can have, as they're all essentially trying to con each other. Or many of them are, and seeing how that's going. Other thoughts? We have a scene to complete. I'm going to ask who is we shouldn't actually have that much of a scene. Good grief, there's barely any scene left. What a place to pause. Oh well, never mind. Very little text to go. We will continue, and I will ask Alan, could you just read any stage directions that we get? I need to check on my dog because there's thunder. So I will return at the end of the scene. Do pause there. I should be back before the end of it, but chat amongst yourselves if I'm not here.
Where are we?
Yeah, good question. I think Lucre's line, the right way, I warrant ye.
Exeunt Witgood and Courtesan, they just left. So Lucre, so let him agree as they will now, I think.
So let them agree as they will now. Many a match has been struck up in my house of this fashion. Let them try all manner of ways. There's nothing like an uncle's house to strike a stroke in. I'll hold my wife in talk a little. Now, Ginny, your son there goes a wooing to a poor gentleman, but of 1,000 portion. See my nephew, a lad of less hope, strikes at 400 a year in good rubbish.
Well, we must do as we may, sir.
I'll have his money ready for him. Again he come down. Let me see. By the mass, I must present the widow with some jewel, a good piece of plate or such device. 'Twill hearten her on well. I have a very fair standing cup. A good high standing cup will please the widow above other pieces.
And exit Lucre.
Do you mock us with your nephew? I have a plot in my head, son. I' faith, husband, to cross you.
Is it a tragedy plot or a comedy plot, good mother?
'Tis a plot shall vex him. I charge you of my blessing, son Sam, that you presently withdraw the action of your love from Master Hoard's niece.
Oh, mother!
Nay, I have a plot in my head, I' faith. Here, take this chain of gold and this fair diamond. Dog, give me the window home to her lodging, and at thy best opportunity fasten them both upon her. Nay, I have a reach. I can tell you thou art known, what thou art, son, among the right worshipful, all the 12 companies.
Truly I thank him for it.
He's a scab to thee. and so certify her thou hast 200 year of thyself, beside thy good parts, a proper person and a lovely. If I were a widow, I could find it in my heart to have thee myself, son. Aye, from them all.
Oh, thank you for your goodwill, mother. But indeed I had rather have a stranger, and if I woo her not in that violent fashion that I will make her be glad to take these gifts ere I leave her, let me never be called the heir of your body.
Nay, I know there's enough in you, son, if you once come to put it forth.
I'll quickly make a bolt to a shaft on it.
They exit.
And they exit, and that's the end of the text we're looking at this time. I don't know how much you were able to elucidate. I'm currently wrestling a dog under the table. It's fine. She's not a happy bunny. Yeah. But we'll keep going. I'm sure it'll be fine. If she howls, then that'll just be something to add to the thing. But there's nothing really to be done. She'll just sit here and be miserable. Anyway, Sam and wife having a chat. What happened in my absence? Someone tell me. I'm sure you know what happened. I'm sure you're perfectly clear as to the relationship. I'm seeing shaking of heads. Someone must know. Whoever was reading Sam and wife surely know what happened. Alexandra.
So I thought, oh, this is so interesting. The wife who has been so quiet and so kind of stereotypical stage wife, female character that is there to be entirely ornamental and just say yes to stuff. As soon as her husband is gone, has this wonderful moment of, oh, good, now let's plot against him, which I loved. Then it went a bit incestuous. Yeah, what? There's something. Hey?
Yeah.
I was going to say there's something really interesting about the fact that the structure of these very long scenes that are now coming after those very short scenes. So we had a sort of montage of, this is the general idea of how many humans are in this and what their relationships are. Now let's delve into the details of how they're all trying to double cross each other. So that's been interesting and sort of, I'm sure would be fun in performance. But as an audience, I think for one, we're not fully elucidating the setups that we've already had set up, and for another, we're already complicating them by adding things we didn't have previously sort of hinted to. So I think to some extent it's becoming easier to follow. In another way, it's just also getting more confusing.
Lynn.
Yeah, because the wife and Sam's plot is a epicycle that Witgood was not counting on. It looks like his grift was, we pretend this woman is a wealthy widow. My uncle is going to want to encourage the match, and he'll basically bribe us, giving gifts and a little cash loan and so forth. And once we've gotten him to, like, I don't know, basically sign over his property or write his will so that Witgood's the heir, then we can drop the pretense and go, we're not getting married. She's not really a widow. But then the wife needs to throw a little bit of a spanner in the works, because it's like, oh, she's rich. We're going to try to get her to marry you instead of my husband's nephew. And then we'll have her income. Witgood was not banking on that. So we'll see how that shakes out.
Yes. Other thoughts?
Witgood's not in control of the narrative to the degree that.
No, I mean, is anybody in control of anything? It's just sort of lots of chaotic wheels in motion. Okay, Stephen.
This is a bit like, I mean, Middleton's just giving us a city, isn't it? It's just like the traffic, the levels of bustle that are going on here, and everybody has a plot. I have a plot in my head. The minute we get into people's heads, what we're finding is plots and plots upon plots. And there's a sort of huge farcical energy and vitality to it, I think, if you could see it. You imagine this done at pace, and it would be like watching a speeded up film of Traffic or something.
Yeah, because we haven't talked about city comedy. This is a city comedy. It's all about the city. It isn't actively interested in the city so far, in the sense of other plays we've looked at where they're very interested in geography and certain things being in certain places. Come in. It's less interested in that, much more the people in the city, the movers and the shakers, or the people who want to be the movers and the shakers, the wheels of commerce, and just that they're not necessarily very impressive things, and people who are trying to make their way in the city, they're sort of faking it till they make it, and everyone's sort of faking it, even if they've already made it, and there is something that does connect with us today. But I mean, we haven't really talked too much about, it is full of references that are a bit obscure. I think there's an awful lot of filleting to go on here to make sure that the language lands and that we can make things clearer. But I think the question about clarity is the question of playwright intent. Are we supposed to really know exactly what's going on? I think by now we're starting to get an idea, but how precisely, is that authorial intent, or is that just the age of the centuries has just made it harder to decode? Alexandra.
Well, I have a thought on that, which actually relates to the thing I was saying earlier. I think if performed and directed, with an eye to detail, it might be that what we are kind of led to experience as an audience is, what the hell is going on? Oh, okay, I'm getting a sense of what's happening. Oh, I know what's happening now. Rug pulled from under our feet. The second we think we know what's happening, something else kind of throws us for a spin. That might be what this is structurally trying to achieve, and I think that would be amazing to have as an experience. To watch an early modern conning kind of coney catching situation, and be getting it on those levels as a modern audience. But I think because of the difficulty with the language and familiarity, if you were to put this on in modern times, filleting in the sense of cutting lines and adjusting stuff, I don't know how much that would fix the intrinsic problem of us as an audience needing to understand what people mean, so that we understand what they want and what they're after. And
because we've got so many double entendres, we've got so many sexual jokes, some of which are clear enough and some of which aren't, and it is that question of, if you're doing double entendres, well, because of history, they're now sort of treble entendres, because we have to go through a level of decoding to get to the double, and it's sort of that there is that distance. I'm going to go into final thoughts for those who wish to give. You don't have to if you don't. I think it's fair to say, as a general summing up, that it's been a tricky one to sort of get into, and we don't know until we get into the latter stages of the play the totality of the show and how it functions yet. So there's only so much we can probably say at this stage. I think I'm still intrigued. I'm interested. I'm interested in these characters. I don't like any of the characters, but I'm interested in the characters. And there's enough there for me to go, okay, because it's well written. I mean, the writing bounces along and it flows, and there's character and there's something for actors to do. Whether that's enough, we shall see. But thoughts in the room. Sarah, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Alexandra just said. I like that idea, and I think it's probably right that, it's this thing of confusion, deliberately confusing the audience, and then sort of getting them to the point where they suddenly feel confident, like, right, I've got it now, and then having the rug pulled out from underneath them. That all makes complete sense. And, if that's what's happening, then great. I I worry slightly that conceit only works if the audience are aware of it. Like if the audience get it enough that they understand that the rug's being pulled out from underneath them. Because if they don't, if they're just so genuinely confused that they don't actually see the structure there and they don't realize what's being done to them, then that kind of spoils the fun to a certain extent. It's a bit like, you know, a whodunit when you guess who did it a split second before the characters do. It's like you want that moment of the audience to think, aha, before the great denouement, or in this case, before the rug's pulled out from underneath them. And I don't know if it's there or not, but I don't think it's I think, you know, I'm really good at visualizing plays as we go along. I can usually see it all on stage in my mind, but I'm having difficulty with this one. So I think maybe this would just all become a lot clearer when it was on stage and when people were wearing different colored hats. Maybe
we need hats tomorrow. Let's next session hats. Okay, he makes a note. Lalitte, any final thoughts?
It's a more general one, really, thinking about how city comedy, all these city comedy tropes of two people who have no money, each persuading the other that they have a lot of money, and then they get married and they found out that they're both completely skint, which seems to kind of crop up. And I'm just wondering, is this when it starts? I mean, or have we had the city comedy thing happening earlier than this, or is there now? Was London expanding at a particularly exponential rate just at this point?
We've had some city comedies already prior to this. We've had some sort of proto-city comedies. You know, it's not a wholly linear narrative. Certainly this is a thing that's happening at this moment, and there's an awful lot of stuff on top of each other. So I don't know if we can really talk about, you know, order of things. But it's definitely a thing that is happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, I'm a bit disappointed in the language so far. I think after some of Marston's plays, where, you know, you could almost smell the sardines, you know, this isn't quite grabbing me on the linguistic level as much as some other stuff, but maybe it'll kind of...
It's been a while since we did Marston.
Yeah.
We'll have to go back to him. Eric, any final thoughts?
I was going to say, well, maybe you just need that thing of the actors actually knowing what this is on about, and then like the audience will, because otherwise, otherwise nobody knows what's going on except the director. In which case everyone's confused. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, I can imagine a world where this would be much clearer if you read the whole play and then work out, okay, this is the old crew, this is the crew that's like younger and trying to sort of mess around and stuff, and we do have sort of precursors to this, just not quite the same elements, I think. I'm not quite sure. It's usually young people trying to scam old people out of money, whereas here we've got like 10,000 plots of young people trying to scam old people who are trying to scam the young people out of their money, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like you need a lot of red string and a very big notice board.
Greg, any final thoughts to throw in?
Probably the usual thing. Well, one of my usual things. I prefer the servant to the other guy. George was far more interesting.
Alan, any final thoughts?
I must admit, I'm having great difficulty getting my head into this, but I think that's possibly partly because we've had a significant hiatus since we last read stuff. So I'm actually having difficulty getting my head into it at the moment. I don't feel that it's massively clear in terms of what it's trying to do. And I think it's going to be one of these ones that, as we work through the remainder of it, the other 2/3 of it, we might get a clearer idea of what it's actually trying to do, and some of this early stuff may make more sense.
I think it's actually useful for us to to have had a gap, not a release schedule gap. This will have been almost immediately after the previous video was released. But for us to actually get back into that question of, what would an audience get from this? Because an audience isn't watching these plays sequentially. They'll be out to watch a show, depending on how we present it. So, yeah, that question of how you tune into this, because I think there is a tuning in issue with this one. That is one of the big problems. I suspect the author is doing all this deliberately, but as we're not living 400 years ago, it is very hard to access what he's doing. I could be wrong. It may turn out to be a mess all the way through. Alexandra, did you have any additional final thoughts you wanted to throw in?
No, that was my final thought. Thank you.
Excellent. Rachel, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I appreciated Lynn's comment that we realize that everyone's plotting. I also think that everyone is sort of dubious morality. So the courtesan stands in for a certain kind of immorality, but then we find out that there's sexual immorality, widespread, and the damper and the other usurer moneylenders, but there's moneylending going on amongst these so-called reputable characters. There's a sort of immorality, that's widespread that I think is kind of fun.
Yes, because I mentioned briefly morality plays, which frequently the structure of a morality play is you have an awful lot of characters who have representational names. Oh, look, we got a lot of characters with representational names, and they're representing some sort of vice. And then you have a central figure who is going to be corrupted, get drunk, and visit a sex worker. Well, actually, this has some of those overarching things, but they're all immoral. There is no moral in this, so it's taking sort of morality play tropes and then just everything's bouncing off each other, so it's like morality plays never quite die, they just evolve into something very unrecognizable, and that sort of interests me.
And Middleton's silly comedies frequently make the parallel between marriage and prostitution, which I totally appreciate.
Stephen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I suppose just riffing off what you've just said, Robert, is there's no victims. If everybody's kind of conning for themselves, then we know it's going to end happily, because if something happens to these people, we don't really care, So we're in a kind of bizarre urban pastoral, Nothing's that serious, So far we haven't met some kind of total innocent who is going to be corrupted in some sort of awful, tragic way. It's all just going to be a huge joke. And to come back to Lalitte's point as well about the sort of the ferment of the city, I wonder if some of this kind of high energy stuff is to do with almost the opposite of that, in the sense that like we get visitations of plague where 10% of the population just gets wiped out. And that perhaps they might have been a bit more receptive to this kind of the vitality and the energy that these characters are showing, because the time itself is one where the city is a dangerous place for all the wrong reasons.
Yes, especially as this play is sitting right on top of one of the worst plague years the period has, so maybe that's part of the matrix. Harriet, it's your first time. Any final thoughts to throw in?
Yeah, just that I guess I find it fascinating that it's focused so much on perhaps like world building as such, and giving us this kind of immersive idea of all these different characters in this society rather than individual plots or characterization. And it going off what Rachel was saying about immorality, it's such a leveler that all these characters, regardless of their background and their age and generational differences, are all in the same position, essentially.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, you said something there I wanted to leap on, and I've forgotten what it was. Never mind, it'll come back to me. Connor, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm struggling with this. I really am struggling. If I was watching this, I'd be probably leaving about 20 minutes ago. Maybe my opinion will change as we progress through it more, but it's not a play that I'm enjoying. Sorry.
Well, no, I mean, the question we're primarily here to ask, what is the best face for any of these plays? What are the best ways of staging, and what's the best?
I think it's really about the physical comedy and seeing it. I mean, I think that's what it's so heavily reliant on. And the point about the play in the time that this would have been produced, I think it's very reliant on that. And as a modern audience, just reading it, we haven't got that kind of reference. So I think it really requires that kind of setting to offset the heaviness of just the barrage of language. Otherwise, it's just, I turned off long ago kind of thing.
Yeah, it as a play, it's interesting because it's not like some of the Johnsons we've read, which where we may have objected to the length and density of those Johnsons, but there's often a character where you're able to go, I've met that person, I know that person, I know what they're doing. These character sketches are not as broad brush.
Yeah,
in that way that you can't play the caricature that you can find an analogue in the modern world. I'm not sure what the analogues for any of these characters are.
I think if you look at Middleton's Revenger's Tragedy, like straight away it just hits you in the face, and you just you just follow it from the word go. With this, you're kind of like, who are you? What's going on? Why? It's just difficult to follow through with it.
Yeah, tragedies are always easier, especially because you can kill anyone you don't like at the end.
Far more entertaining.
You can't do that with comedies. Lynn, I think you're our final one. Any final thoughts?
Lots of sort of things rattling around in my head. I think that the struggles that we have been having with following the plot and sort of getting a perspective on like what's the overall structure, what are the relationships between whom, I think after the good actors and a good director with rehearsal time could really alleviate that struggle a lot. Intentionality is really important. And I think, some people commented after Lucre's first scene that, that was hard to follow. That's like partly me. I don't know what I'm saying. So if an actor knows what they're saying, what they mean, it makes a huge difference to the comprehensibility for the audience. I mean, this sort of reminds me of being on the phone with customer service, because people have these lines that they rattle off and they don't really even think about what they're saying. And it's really hard for the customer to actually process that. Like, they hear the words, but the speaker doesn't have any intentionality, and it makes it really difficult to have a meaningful conversation. But if your actors went through this, okay, this is what I mean here, and this is what I'm trying to do here. I think actually that those struggles would be much relieved by in actual performance, because the actors' intentions would be much more clear, because the actors would know what their intentions were.
Yeah, because there are other questions to do with, calling it a comedy. Because we haven't really sort of addressed, if it's a comedy, then what is the joke? Where are the jokes? What each scene, each speech, where is the humour coming from? There's this constant question actually at the end of a scene, is there something humorous actually happening there? Where is that humour lying? And I think a lot of this, we're not really picking up, well, what's the joke? What's the joke? We've noticed lots of potential sexual innuendos within the dialogue, but actually the question whether they're landing or not is a big question. But what is the joke? What are the jokes of the scenes, individual scenes, individual acts? Where is, if that is what this play is doing, if it's primarily about satire, then that formulation doesn't always work. But it's sort of one of those questions about what is it that we're supposed to be finding entertaining overall, per act, per scene, per moment, and how do we get that across to an audience?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that yet. It's often not until the final scene of a play that I go, aha! I figured out how to do this play.
I think Stephen kind of had it when he said basically, we don't really care that much. I mean, the emotional stakes are really low here because everyone's terrible. So that's you've got to have an audience that thinks that terrible people are funny. So Yeah, that's the joke, is that terrible people are funny and terrible things happening to terrible people is kind of something kind of satisfying about that.
Well, we will find out more about that next time when we go through the middle of the play of A Trick to Catch the Old One. All that remains, however, at this time is thank all the wonderful readers for being wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Toad, aspic, serpent, viper.